What up, y'all? This is Patrick Hayes. I'm coming to you all from Tucson, Arizona. I'm out here in the Saguaro National Forest. Maybe I'll put another shot in the end of the video showing you the epic view that's over that mountain over there. But anyway, what I want to talk about today is the importance of human connection and the significance of human connection for our own evolutionary purposes. And, you know, I talked a bit about this in the video that I called, Are You Addicted to Social Media? And on the thumbnail it said Media Crack. And I was talking about this epidemic of loneliness and how this has affected humanity, and how it's in many ways the source of what I feel like the social media addiction is, and social media in many ways playing the part of a false solution to our loneliness, because it lacked the true kind of connection that we really are yearning for. And so I've been asking myself for quite some time, what is real connection, and what does that look like, and what is the significance of that? And we know it's significant, at least I know it's significant, but how significant actually is it, and what does it actually mean? And I think that this is something that we will continue to expand upon as humanity evolves, and it will get deeper and deeper and more profound. But I feel like a new level of profundity has been bubbling its way up into my consciousness since I've been asking this question, and I want to share that with you. So we talk about connection, and I talk about the importance of connection, because we need to come together so that we can act as collective intelligences and truly be more in sync with each other in order to solve the world's problems. But what does that actually look like? Now, I did an interview recently with Dan Winters, and I brought him on because I felt like what he had to say was really relevant. And he talks about collective bliss experiences. He talks about bliss experience in general, and how that creates coherency within your aura, and that how, when done with a group of people, creates coherency amongst the group of people. So therefore, the people can then act together, as he says, project their plasma together, which is the true definition of politics. So, in other words, people coming together in coherency and being deeply connected replaces politics as usual, but it's actually something that's more fundamental. It's more of a natural connection between a group of people where they're so in sync that it doesn't require so much bureaucracy. It's something that's just more natural. So with that said, what's really been hitting me hard recently is the actual experience of deep connection. And the best way I can describe it is, deep connection is being able to hold sacred space with people, with a friend, for extended periods of time. Like, your relationship is sacred space. So sacred space, to give some context, if you've ever been to a spiritual kind of concert, like a ceremony of some sort that had sacred space that was set, you can feel it. It's a palpable experience. Some of you may have experienced that. Another place where sometimes people feel sacred space is at something like, like a childbirth, where a child's being born, especially if it's like an at-home water birth. There's something sacred in the air. You can feel it. And when there is a sacred space, for anybody that's actually experienced it, it's not something where you might not be thinking in your head like, oh, this is sacred space. But the feeling is an overwhelming sense of well-being. It's a blissful experience. This is a bliss experience. And sacred space is oftentimes held by some sort of shaman. So a sacred space can be held by like an ayahuasca shaman. And if you've been in an ayahuasca ceremony, usually by the end of the ceremony, when everyone's gone through all of their stuff, is a very sacred space that is felt, because the medicine has brought that up and brought that through for people. So people are in a very, assuming that the shaman is one of the kinds of shamans that we want to be participating with. But it's a very beautiful, sacred, potent space. And it's somewhat ineffable. That's why I'm having trouble describing it. But if you've experienced it, you know what I'm talking about. Here's a great way of describing it. It's like energetically, it's like an ecstasy high. If you've ever done MDMA, it's like being on MDMA, except for it's clearer because you earned it and it's coming from the right space. It's not necessarily just chemically induced. So how I would describe that is that, you know, I've done a lot of drugs in my past and I've had these really, really high experiences, but then as I've developed them sober on my own, naturally, through my own endocrine system, my own endogenous chemicals in my body, I've realized how imbalanced that space was, though in many ways, some of the essences are very similar. So it's similar to like an ecstasy high, except for it's clean. That's probably maybe one of the best ways I can describe it. So what I'm talking about here is cultivating this kind of space with your friends. So it's like anytime you guys are interacting with each other, that you're in sacred space. Sacred space doesn't become just this place that you experience when you're in ceremony of some sort. It's like your life is ceremony. And you know, this is something you can cultivate on your own. So, you know, when I go into my meditative spaces, when I'm watching the sunsets, like I go into sacred space, but it's not always easy to expand that to more than one person. You know, we can feel these sacred spaces when we're meditating or when we're, you know, introverted, but how do we extend that outside of ourselves? And this is the kind of connection that I feel is so profound and so significant in the evolution of humanity. It's expanding this sacred space to groups of people and then maintaining that as a way of being. Now, it's not always easy to find other people that you can resonate with on this level, but it's first crucial that you learn how to resonate and get into sacred space on your own. But once you can get into sacred space on your own, then you are a prime candidate to be able to unify with another group of people that have the capacity to get into sacred space, and then you make that a way of being and a way of life amongst that community. And when we do this, we are literally setting a new template for the consciousness of humanity. And it is operation from within this higher template grid of sacred space that literally is the new earth or ascension or 5D or whatever you want to call it. Because ultimately this does lead to 5D, and 5D, as I understand it, is basically merging with the astral realm, so that astral realm and physical realm are in sync and you inhabit both at the same time, and you're consciously maneuvering through both at the same time, as opposed to being unconsciously inhabiting the astral realm. So we got the first three dimensions, which is space, fourth, which is time, fifth being astral realm. So that's my understanding of the fifth dimension, and other people might see it differently, but that's okay. Ultimately, where this goes is that when you're able to stabilize that kind of sacred space with people in your life, then you are starting to develop the capacity to connect and lucid dream together, which is weaving your subconscious minds together. So it's actually weaving your lucidity together to the point where you're both sharing reality in the astral realm. And that is literally making a spiritual union with these people that is far stronger than any other kind of bond or connection that you can experience from any lower level. So when we're able to connect with each other on this kind of level, this is when world solutions become intuitive. This is when the transformation of humanity becomes accessible quickly. The important thing here is for us to do our personal work so that we can cultivate sacred space regularly within ourselves, and then really seek out those friendships where we can expand that sacred space into and consciously hold that sacred space. And this is beyond time and space, meaning when you generate a deep connection with somebody else, and by deep connection, I mean the capacity to hold sacred space. What this is literally God realizing itself. When you have sacred space within yourself, that's you realizing the God in yourself. And the essence of you realizing God in yourself is bliss. It is a sense of well-being. It is that deep breath in the sunset that is just so beautiful that it makes you feel like you're going to cry, or you do cry. And it's just so sacred and it feels so beautiful. And that essence carried into a relationship where both people are able to look at each other like a sacred sunset and share that experience and see the God in each other. So we've gotten past our blocks. We can be fully transparent with each other. We can be fully relaxed with each other. We can be fully blissful with each other. We've gotten over enough of our baggage that we've let ourselves move into that higher vibrational state without a block. And when we can share that and cultivate that space, cultivate that friendship to the depth where hanging out and doing things in our reality can still have that sacred space surrounding it. This literally is taking ourselves to the next octave. And this is what we need to do, because from this space is where we can connect as collective intelligences and literally operate as one. If you've ever seen a concert where all of the people listening are almost stargazing the person that's singing, and the person that's singing is like shamanically holding the space to something so beautiful and so sacred that there's not even a word. There could be 2,000 people there, not even one person speaking. Everyone's transfixed. Everyone's in this sacred space together. Now, the difference between this and what I'm talking about is I'm saying taking this into all contexts of life so that we can all be on the same wavelength. You see, this is when everyone's on the same wavelength. Everyone's on the wavelength of the music. And so everybody's transfixed and everybody's moving at the same pace and everybody's so present to it that everyone is tuned into the same song. What I'm talking about is taking this into our relationship dynamics. And this requires a lot of personal work because we have to let go of the fears that would get in the way of that. We have to let go of the judgments that would disturb this sacred energy. But when we do that and we cultivate it with just one person, this is an evolutionary jump. This is a spiritual grounding that brings into our interactional and transpersonal experience something spiritually divine. And it's beautiful because we're sharing it with others. So this is that sacred space you get into when you're in meditation, shared with other people. So what this requires, like I said, is us to do our personal work, but for us to seek out those relationships that have the potential to go there. If you're somebody that can go there within yourself, but you haven't found other people that can go there, trust me, there are other people that can go there. So your job is to seek those people out and impregnate this concept, this idea of developing that level of sacred depth in relationship and consciously cultivating that. So getting into that sacred space, holding that reverence in the conversation, holding that reverence in the activity that you're sharing, and make that a way of being between you, and then expand the group to more people. So that's what I want to share with you today. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Patrick Hayes, and I'll put a little clip in of this view up here because it's really beautiful. So much love to you.